Forge the Narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. We all about Lost Souls Pod. I'm joined tonight by Val Heffelfinger.
Happy Boxing Day, everybody.
And Chris Morgan.
Happy Sanguinala.
We're recording this on December 26th, right after the holiday here. Thanks for joining me. I know everybody's schedule's tight.
Hey, absolute pleasure to be here. As you know, Boxing Day is the traditional holiday in Canada where you take all of your leftovers from Christmas dinner, you go outside and you fist fight your neighbor.
Yeah, that's it. A little pugilism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just love the holiday pay. That's why I'm here.
On this show, I have a segment I'm going to insert that I did with Carl Tuttle.
The Carl Tuttle?
Yeah, I'm a great dude. I joke around about him a little bit on the show every now and then. But anytime I can get him on, it's been a while since I've had him on the show, so I thought it'd be great to bring him on here for the year-end show, where we talk a little bit about what went on in the ICs this year, talk about some of the charity work that he's doing right now for the campfire relief out there in California.
That's really awesome.
Talk about some of the plans he's got for the next year. I can't remember if I do any resolutions. I'm going to do a couple of pre-resolutions on this show for hobby work next year.
Okay.
Do that later on in the episode. But anyway, I'm going to do that probably in about midway through the show. It's about a 40-minute segment. Real fun to listen to, I thought.
That's barely the intro to an independent character show, so that's good value.
We do talk about, one of the things that we cover, I guess is a theme throughout the segment, is the fact that he and I enjoy this hobby differently, but yet we still have a whole lot of similarities.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, actually. There was this slight grilling that Carl got on his last episode about just some very innocuous offhand comment about something ITC competitive, blah, blah, blah. And it turned into like a 25-minute tangent on, listen, you can play the way you want and then still have fun. It's fine. It's fine. This is just how I feel about it. It's just, watch out there.
You know, I found
Be careful.
When I first started playing 40K, I found there was a lot of like competitive 40K shaming that went on, and I always admired Carl's take, which was that it's not for me. But he's never been one of those guys who's like you don't hear him say cheese 1,000 times in podcasts. You know what I mean? Like he understands how he likes to enjoy the game. He's got a good crew of dudes who, and I think even a dudette potentially that enjoy playing the game that way. They do open play. They use the cards, all that kind of stuff, and they have a great time. And it's fantastic. And he's a very hobby positive dude.
Y'all should listen to the segment. I think you'll enjoy it. I did enjoy doing it, and I've edited it. I still can't remember exactly what I said, but I edited it a couple days ago. But it's going to be on this show.
Also,
good times.
One last thing about Carl Tuttle that I love. There was a photo he posted, a shot of his cubicle at work, and it was on his desk in the background. Wasn't supposed to be there, but on his desk in the background was his photo frame, and it was a picture of his wife, and then like Horace. This was on his desk. I loved it.
You got to let it out sometimes.
He lets that flag fly. He's a bit of an inspiration.
Well, for years, I didn't necessarily tell my employer what I was doing with some of my time off. And now I just look, I'm going to a tournament, I'm going to a convention, I'm going to here or there. I need to, I got some stuff I got to do around the house. I paint some miniatures for a tournament I got to take some time off for.
Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, got to go, boss.
Yeah. Just tell them. No.
I swear it's part of the reason how I got my job. It's just, they're like, so tell me what you're passionate about. How much time you got?
How deep do you want to go down this rabbit hole? Well, I don't know if you guys know Matt. I can't remember. Matt Root. He used his winning the ITC as on his application at his placement for medical school.
Oh, interesting.
So there you go. 40K can get you places, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's one of those. The whole culture is shifting. I mean, look at all the hero movies, superhero movies, and sci-fi movies. That this stuff. I'm not saying you should. Get a tattoo on your hand or anything of the D&D symbol or something. I don't know how that's
just like on your neck or something.
Yeah, I was going to say neck tattoo, please. Come on.
But the stuff, I'm really happy that this stuff is starting to get out there, more pervasive into our cultures. It's neat. So I guess, take the temperature yourself. You know how it's going to go, but sometimes,
And hey, there's an animated series coming, guys. This could go mainstream all of a sudden, and we'll have to
give me a minute to just heavy breathing.
Can you imagine if 40K was suddenly Game of Thrones and we're all standing there like, why does everyone know what we're talking about? That would be funny.
Yeah, the quick year in review for FTN got what we put up 50 something episodes. That's just a guess because we do a weekly show.
It seems reasonable. I think we may have missed like 1 or 2 weeks.
But there's some double episode weeks too, so I would say 50 plus.
50 plus. It's a really great.
Yeah, some bonus.
Continue to talk with folks that interact with us for Army List or on YouTube. We just crossed over 4,000 subscriptions on YouTube.
Oh, congrats, Mazel Tov.
So that's growing that side. So people, please subscribe, like, comment. I don't ask for it enough. I should ask for it, but please do. It's one of the ways. And there's a nice community of people that comment and chat and stuff on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. It helps. It's one of the channels for getting topics on the show. So anybody that enjoys us that way, don't stop listening to us in the podcast stuff. But, it's just there. It's there. Tell your friends if they're looking for, if that's how they consume it, it's out there. I want to make sure it's out there for folks to listen to.
And write more iTunes reviews for me to read my mom.
I so rarely, I think I wrote an iTunes review for Forge the Narrative once upon a time.
Please, I hope it was a 5-star.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. It should have been.
I've painted, I don't know, I started counting up how many models that I've painted this year, and it's a lot. And I feel pretty fortunate to do that because not everybody gets that kind of time. And I actually thanked, my family, hey y'all, thank y'all for being understanding of when I come and jam paint for an hour or two. But it's hundreds of models. Painted some Army stuff for friends. Painted stuff for myself.
A lot of Necrons in there.
Oh yeah, ton of Necron. Painted a whole Necron army for a returning player.
It took him all of 15 minutes.
Did he stay?
Oh yeah, no, still plays. Trying to get more competitive. You got really with Necrons. If that's your jam, it's a little bit of rough waters right now.
Tough sledding. Yeah.
And Chapter Approved kind of re-energized him, got him back into it, got him playing again. He's also a kill team player, so there's that. So in addition to 40K models, I painted a bunch of kill team models for myself and other folks. So a lot of models have been painted this year. And terrain. That's kind of one of the hobby resolutions, to paint more terrain. But even then, the 2-3 tables that I've done this year, look back and I feel like it's real time well spent.
I feel like I just got to have a rattle can party and just get some terrain to A level. Just at least spray painted some colors. That's what I would love to do.
Well, spray paint. You find if you get a good rattle can of a color that you like, that looks good. I mean, the plastic terrain that you can get from GW and stuff it holds detail really well. Like you don't need a lot of effort to put into there. So you don't need a lot of skill to make it look good. I mean, for one of the terrain sets, I followed Duncan's tutorial on how he did the brown, Shadow War terrain. Remember when that first came out?
Definitely watched that actually.
Did that to the letter. It is, mind-numbingly simple. But the colors that he uses really showcase the terrain and look great on the table. And then, right now people have asked when they've seen us taking pictures of battles or streaming them or whatever is, why are you using some area terrain? That area terrain, well, one, because it's, I think the game functions a little bit better.
Like 30 years of that being a thing.
Well,
by the way.
It's still, models have to be in cover so that sometimes the game is more fun for your opponent or even you if you have sufficient cover on the table, and it's not hard to make. One of the things, though, is that type of terrain is not typically easily available. You can't go and buy variety of area type terrain. And what I mean by area terrain, because you're right, Chris, it's not even a real definition anymore. It's some type of, it was like a forest. Or a bombed out city, a block with no buildings on it. That spot of things that infantry can stand in and receive a cover bonus, even if if they're not fully obscured or whatever.
And pay attention to what they say in Chapter Approved. A lot of those little things got little tweaks to what they do in the game.
Yeah, and this is
movement penalties and such.
With the specific rules of that kind of stuff, which that's another thing that varies from group to group. But you get what I'm saying? People ask, why do you do it? How do you do it? That's MDF from Home Depot, or hardware store. They sell it in 2x2 squares or 2x4 flat sheets. You can get different thickness and just cut it up with a hacksaw, or sorry, not a hacksaw, jigsaw or a bandsaw or whatever. If you don't have the power tool, the jigsaw, the cope, it's not a coping saw. Maybe it is, but it's the one that has the C and the blade.
Mm-hmm.
Under it, whatever that is. I think it's $3 or $4 from a hobby store. I'm sorry, from a hardware store. Can easily make that. I think the table, so the terrain, that's a long way of saying the terrain on the table makes for more enjoyable gaming experiences. And if you play a lot or want to recycle, shuffle it out, at least have 2 tables worth, I think it's a worthy endeavor to get that done.
Like when you're first starting out, having shoe boxes and empty soup cans or whatever, it works, but as you keep playing, it gets stale, right? You want to have something cool to put down.
Paint those soup cans.
And you notice like that there are certain stores around here, right, where there's a disparity in terrain from one store to the other, and you can tell which store gets more people to come there and play, or it's the one that has the better terrain.
Here's, I think, something we could all do for resolutions. I guess we can go ahead and jump right into it.
Sure.
Hear what you guys want to say too. But my resolutions are: I'm not going to use poor quality brushes or brushes that have expired. You're
gonna fancy up your brush game, Paul?
Well,
That's
I don't
your
know about fancying up the brushes, but I
Sable
know
only?
I hang on to brushes longer than I should. And I know I have a brush that it was crappy when I bought it, but somehow I use it sometimes, and it could be like, oh, I guess I'll try to base coat some metal with this brush, and I just don't like the experience that it gives me.
But you have some sort of emotional attachment to it?
Because I bought it.
Fair.
It's there. It's within arm's reach.
Maybe it says tank brush on it.
I'm waiting on my preferred brush to fully dry after I've washed it off in the water, or I'm letting some of the brush soap condition it or something. I mean, I don't know. There's no good reasons, Val. That's that's where I'm going. No good reasons, but when you have a brush that's either just doesn't behave like you expect it to, it takes you longer to get good work out of it.
Yeah, I can't say I could relate to this. If I don't like a brush, I throw it in the garbage ball. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, look, if anybody out there is like me, I just hang on to it. I mean, I'm not necessarily emotionally, I don't know what it is, but that's one of my things. I'm not going to use brushes that I don't like anymore. I'm going to go through and clean out some of the ones that I know are past their time. And it's a combination of things, either ones that are older, they just, I've worn some of the bristles off. It's not even.
You gotta do the Marie Kondo approach. You gotta pick up the object. You have to thank it for the joy it's given you, and then you must let it go, Paul.
Just let it go.
Just gotta let it go.
That's the thing, is that I don't really.
You know what helped me get rid of old brushes? Moving.
Yeah.
That might be a little extreme for you, but
yeah, I think I can solve this problem a little bit differently. But I think that's something I've decided to do is, and then another one. If a kit comes with multiple head options, I'm only going to use the heads I really like.
You're only going to use the heads you really like?
Yeah.
What is the alternative?
Well, say, because some kits come with 8 heads and you only need 6 of them or 5 of them or whatever.
Yeah, if that even.
Yeah. I'm only going to use it. Like painting these Ludas, for instance, there are 2 orc heads that I don't like. I don't like them because they don't seem to paint up well enough for me. I can't get them to look all that great. That's why I don't like them.
This might just be a window into the soul of an OCD man. But are you suggesting that you to date will just use every head because you feel compelled to?
No.
Like, for example, for Ludas, I only use the helmeted heads for Ludas.
No, there's no compulsion. It's just when I'm building them, I just think, I guess for variety, I'll stick it on or whatever.
You don't want too many sammy. Okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
That's just it. But now I think I'm going to commit this next year to only if I have the option of using, of avoiding the heads I don't like, I'm not going to use them.
What about as a group here, guys? Like, do we have a sense as to bits in general? Because like I found myself trying to not hold on to every bit that I don't use. Am I crazy to do this?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
Well, my wife got me this giant, and I don't know what it's called, but it looks like either like a fishing tackle or maybe a bead box with a bunch of different sized drawers. It's probably about 18 inches to 20 inches tall by about 30 inches wide.
That could maybe hold the various Shuda boy arms that I have. Like that is the base of the mountain.
So yeah, I mean, bits are a thing, and it's an ever growing problem. But there are some times where I found a bit that is 4 or 5 years old, and I'm like, this is perfect, and it makes saving all of the other ones I didn't use feel worth it.
See, that's my worst nightmare when I think about throwing away bits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really
Wrong,
tough.
wrong show to ask. Wrong
No,
show to
it
ask.
really is. Although,
I have the bits from, just put this, what I'm doing. I've got the bits from, like, what was it? It was 120 Fire Warriors. And that's a lot of bits. Like, that is so many sprues of, like, the other 2 weapon loadouts for Fire Warriors and all this stuff. It's like, it's just stacks and stacks of bits.
you should be required to wear those
As some
a
sort
shackle
of
around your ankle. Yeah, as a...
Yeah, no doubt. Or just yeah, some sort of symbolic thing going on there. Maybe like make a hair shirt out of them. So I just
There
have to
you go.
wear this like uncomfortable, painful shirt of sprue around every
with
turn.
like a big leather strap around it that just has to get tightened every now and then to... Yep.
Getting dark here. Getting dark. Grim dark, if you will.
That's right. It's also
All right, so
worthwhile sometimes. Maybe a resolution you could have would be to clip them off the sprue
There
and
you
to collect them into plastic bags
Right.
because that
Appropriate
reduces the footprint.
Are your kids big enough to do that?
I don't have kids. I could maybe get my bulldogs to just chew them, and then as a
Get 'em on
result
the
of
other
that
side.
process, they would just I would imagine most of them wouldn't actually get digested. They would just wind up on the floor all willy nilly. That's an idea. That's an idea.
But it
So, Paul-
does reduce the footprint, though. So if you clip them off the sprue, then you change what is you don't need a 4x4 box anymore. You could fit it into a shoebox.
You can do the tackle box method. I'm familiar, but it's still an ungodly amount of
But that's time. See where do you get the time? What is it? What are you trading? What are you trading for that?
right.
But it's a good resolution to make.
What's a good resolution?
Yeah, reducing your sprue footprint.
Just my 40K footprint in general. I put for the first time ever. I put stuff in storage, and that was a big threshold for me to like literally like boxed it. It was actually, in fact, all of my Tau is in a box in my storage locker. So I define that as like, I'd have to go somewhere with a different set of keys to get my Tau at this point. And that to me was a big deal. Like that I'm actually storing 40K. It's not all current stock.
Yeah, that is a big step. That's
Oh boy. That's the road to hoardiness. But we'll see. We'll see. One more, Paul. Give us something a little more sad. What about another resolution?
Another resolution. Well, I am going to finish these orcs for sure.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
That's happening.
More tradition.
Yep, and I'm going to play more board games.
Board games?
Yep, love them, man. It's one of those things to where
I saw you getting some shade thrown at you for playing the Barnes and Noble Game of Thrones game.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
You're the only.
You could do
person
so
who
much
plays
worse
that.
than picking up Lord of the Rings games, let me tell you.
I do play games with my children, but my 7-year-old was playing this game and he was into it. I'm talking seriously into it. Like he's playing cards. My wife and him playing at the kitchen table. There's cards in the game that let you move another player like away from their goal or whatever. And he is picking and choosing when to do this very strategically. I mean, like almost like Cutthroat. It was moving to watch.
That's great. I've got a niece and a nephew, and I'm always like sort of playing games with them and whatever, but not like in any sort of structured way. And I'm really watching them close for like when I feel like they have the patience to actually like stay invested in an imaginary game and play by the rules. And then I know Uncle Val will be able to teach him some good board games.
Oh, there's the mechanic in the game. And this game is at the beginning of the game, or beginning of each of the player turns, you draw a card that says where the Eye of Sauron focuses on. And so it bebops around the map, and when it lands on you, you lose a card, and you have to go to one of the other spots on the map, go to one of the starting locations on the map. But the goal is to find the ring and then take it to Mount Doom.
And Sam took it home for you.
Sam, oh yeah, Mr. Sammy G.
Drove
it
it
to the
to
house.
the net.
That's right. Oh, and my wife's idea was like, well, let's play with our cards face up. So Garrett understands what's going on. And I'm like, he does not need any help. He is doing his.
I'm watching those shifty eyes.
He is.
He knows
Well,
what's up.
There's a couple of, there's the cards, and when you draw them, the event cards, some of them, everyone gets a couple at the beginning of the game, and you're supposed to, discard the ones that say play immediately, and then draw cards. You're supposed to have cards that are play at your leisure at the start of the game, and then you can draw the immediately ones as the game progresses. And I said, Garrett, if any of them say play immediately, then any of your cards look at them, and if they say play immediately, we have to discard them and get a couple of others. He's like, both of my cards say immediately. I'm like, and I've showed him the word immediately in the rulebook. I'm like, they say this. He's like, yeah. Like, oh, all right, Garrett, let me see them. I'm like, oh, they do both say. Play it immediately. Like, so he's a reader, so you got to be careful, you know. But it was a great way to spend some time. And what I did like was that the game had some strategic elements to it, and it engaged the whole family. So there's that.
Awesome.
It is not
sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it's not a cooperative game. And to me, the Fellowship of the Ring should have a cooperative. That's not what the game's about, nor does it allude to, but you're using the Fellowship characters. And you could have differing goals.
So you're saying there may be more than one Boromir in this party?
Well, you see, the game is a great game with subject matter that you like if you like Lord of the Rings stuff, and it's worth checking out. It did engage the family, and I did have fun doing it.
I was actually thinking I'd love to spend one day on my little Christmas break here and watch, like, just power through a bunch of Lord of the Rings. But then I realized, like, what is the highest fidelity version of Lord of the Rings these days? Do I got some Lord of the Rings nerds here?
It's not 4K. It's got to be.
Is it probably?
I don't think it's 4K.
No, it's got to be the one down.
I know that the iTunes versions keep getting updated.
It's got to be a 1080p.
So I don't know how you watch your movies, but yeah.
It's got to be 1080p.
I'll Google this.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's good stuff. I used to, because we do this big Lord of the Rings game every year with my dad's hobby group. We've done it for probably the last 20 years, almost 15, 20 years. And I always, when preparing models for it, I always used to have the movies on while I painted. And that was kind of how I spent my prep time doing that. This year, we brought down over 1,000 painted Lord of the Rings figures. We didn't need any more, so it didn't actually end up happening. So now I'm kind of feeling like I want to watch them again.
Heck yeah, we watch them every year. At least one of them every year. Let's take a break. We'll come back with Carl, and then we'll come back with us right after that.
Right on.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special segment of Forge the Narrative. I'm joined tonight by Carl Tuttle.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, you're right. This is a special segment.
Dude, it is, man. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you for having me, Paul. I always like chatting with my buddy.
It's been a while, and here we are at the end of the year, and I wanted to just have a talk with you, see how your year's been going on the ICs, and I don't know, just have us chat about everything we've been going. Of course, we talk off air, but it's been a while since we talked on air.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure. From my perspective, things have changed a lot at home. There's a lot of personal stuff going on, so I've gained access to a part of the house that I didn't have access to before, which is just this huge area, and I've got honestly a game room that most people dream about having. And so a lot of my latter part of the year has been figuring out how do I furnish this thing and make it wanted. It sounds really dumb, but it's a great space. I've had multiple parties here already for game day type stuff, which is just fantastic. But
that's the best when you have a half dozen friends or more over and have plenty.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah. I think the last thing we had it was one of the episodes we just released. I had Jason Mullins from the Sons of Heresy podcast is out visiting, and Jason and I are very good friends. And so he was coming over to stay the night and stuff. And I said, maybe we could get a game day going. And the next thing I knew, Loopy from The Forge was like, hey, you mind if I come visit? Because I'm not going to be able to go to Adepticon because my wife's having a baby. Yeah, come on over. And so he flew out.
He didn't get the memo to avoid.
I tried to tell him.
Birth of babies and or other important events around major tournaments.
Anywhere near Adepticon. And because that's a lifelong commitment you're making right there.
It is. Yeah.
And then Ed from Life After the Cover Save said, if they're coming up, I'm going to drive up. So he drove up from Southern California. We had like another dozen people are here or so. And it was fun. It was a great time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw, not to take us too far off topic, but I saw that you actually posted some pictures of the Alpha Game Table from Fermentera. They're a sponsor of ours right now.
Oh, nice. Nicest guys ever. And honestly, I own 4 of those tables because, they're super easy to lay out. They're super easy to store, especially compared to like the 2 I would get the 2 tables from like Home Depot and then put a thing on top of those 2 tables. And you get a little more room with those, but you pay for it in storage and you pay for it in just simplicity. So yeah, I really like the Alpha table. I actually bought, I think one of them was sent to us as an evaluation thing, and then I bought the other 3 just because I like it so much.
That's pretty cool. I joke around about you being my nemesis.
Why would I be your nemesis?
Because the independent characters, man. Who doesn't want to be as cool as those guys?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's been a good year. I have rotated through some guests. I mean, Adon and Justin are still my regular, guest hosts. When they couldn't make it, I'd bring in a couple other guys, or I'd bring in a couple other guys just to change it up a little bit from time to time. And we have such a big gaming group here. It's easy for us to kind of rotate people around like that. But, it's been really good. The latter part of the year, things started getting busy again. We had some family stuff going on, so the show got a little sporadic there, but we're kind of back on track. And in fact, I was just talking to Justin and Don about, we do a year-end special, usually releases like first week in January, that we cover everything that came out for Warhammer 40K, whether it was the studio, Forge World, Black Library, third-party stuff, and we kind of go through this whole thing to say, yeah, look how far we've come, and this year's crazier than ever. So I'm looking forward to actually recording that episode, which we record, I think, next week.
I bet it'd be cool to look back to the last January or something and just see how far things have come.
Crazy. I mean, Thousand Suns came out last January, and
it's a forever ago. Almost.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the army I love the most. I've been playing the heck out of it, and I have a commission painted. A friend of mine, Colin, painted up a Thousand Suns army for me, and I keep adding to it. So I keep sending him.
He's so talented.
Oh my God, he's so good. He's so good, and it's just a beautiful army. And then I sent off the demon half of it to my friend Dave Paints out in Europe, and he did the whole demon half of it. And so now I've got this. I'm trying to find somebody this holiday to play Apocalypse with me because I want to field it all.
Oh man, that'd be rough. You got Magnus and everything too?
I painted up Magnus myself, actually.
I saw that, yeah.
So he's the worst looking one of the bunch.
Well, he dies first anyway, so it's
actually he came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the results of him, and the whole army is just beautiful. But I mean, going back to the point, I mean, it doesn't feel like I've been playing this army that long, but I really, really have, and I'm still screwing things up and learning things, but I love it. I've connected with it on a level that I haven't connected with anything since my original Death Guard army. So
you don't play in a lot of tournaments and stuff.
No, I am playing a Kill Team tournament at Adepticon.
Okay, well, I mean that's cool. I guess competitive is competitive, right? Try or
sure.
whatever.
Let's be honest. I'm not going to win. I'm just going to have fun. But yeah, I do not. Tournaments are not typically my scene.
But you're still, I mean, I think it appears on the surface that you and I enjoy the hobby differently, but yet we have a whole lot of similarities, and I thought that might be kind of fun to explore during this segment.
Well, we're both incredibly handsome, and so that is
dashing, some may say.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I do radio, not video. Right? Can't have all those women chasing me down. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you, Paul. I mean, you and I have known each other for years now and get along smashing, and Chris as well. And you guys are, I think you get. It's funny because sometimes I will point people to your show and I go, if you're looking for more tournament focus, like these guys could address it. But when I listen to your show, like, I don't feel like it's all about tournament stuff. I mean, you certainly have a competitive discussion and that kind of thing, but your show isn't what I would just say tournament focused. But yeah, you and Chris either run or play in tournaments way more than I do. And I used to play in tournaments back in 5th edition.
Well, I think it's a natural progression of the hobby. Once you start, you've got this army and then you want to kind of parade it out. You want to show it off. What's a good way to do it? A couple of tournaments where a bunch of people show up and get to ooh and all over your army.
Sure. And I mean, there's a whole lot of pride you can take in showing off an army you've painted. I mean, I won a best painted with my Death Guard stuff, which was all Forge World before Forge World was so popular. And, and honestly, like I used to say, I don't think it's painted that great. I think I just kind of got the Forge World bump at that time. Like nobody had Forge World stuff.
Whatever. Sometimes the Death Guard can get you a best painted out of nowhere because people just like that aesthetic.
Yeah. So, but I would agree. I am certainly not tournament focused, but we spend hours upon hours talking and drinking at Adepticon about everything. Right. And I mean, here's the thing. I've listened to, I typically, I'll be honest, I typically do not listen to other 40K podcasts because I don't want my show influenced by what other people are doing. And in fact, Campbell, who is part of the 40K Badcast, at one point sent me a message because we were doing this thing called Chaos Resurgent series, and we were talking about each of the factions, in each episode. And he was like, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea. I wish, we did it first." And he was teasing me about it because we're friends. And I'm like, "Oh, did you? Like, I didn't listen, And
he thinks you're throwing shade, but
no. And then begrudgingly, he goes, "Yeah, but you guys did it better." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know about that. I didn't listen to your episode, but we have a very structured approach to how we approach it." But I intentionally do not listen to other shows that often. So I did listen to a show recently, and I heard the hosts talking about, denigrating or talking down about power level and narrative play, and how they had a host who would come from that, but was now focused on, tournament play. And it really, it kind of really hit me, right? I mean, I was like, listen, one type of play is no less legitimate than another.
Yeah. Well, especially now they're all fully supported. I mean, each one of these releases, even chapter approved, which is really a points update, has a lot of material that enforces or reinforces all the types of play.
Yeah. Look, if we want to argue it, what's the first type of play listed in the rule book? It's open play. And I actually don't play open play, because I think we play kind of an amalgamation of tournament to open to narrative play. Most of our stuff's narratively focused, but I mean, we would be fine saying, the new chapter approved had the new orc vehicles in it, right? We'd be like, yeah, bring that orc vehicle. And you know what? I'm going to bring one of the land raiders from the previous chapter.
Character creation too. I mean, I bet there's a lot of people that are wanting to throw in their custom character they kit bashed 3 years ago or something,
Sure. I mean, so we're way more flexible about that within my group. And, it's all about having the conversation. And I think we've beaten that horse to death at this point. But I mean, all those differences aside, in my mind, no play is less legitimate than another. And the fact that you guys like tournament play, to a degree, I wish I enjoyed tournament play because it seems like people really, really like it. It's just, I got enough stress in my life. I don't need to be stressed out of.
Well, I mean, it's something that you can go and it's a measurable achievement.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's okay, I went 3-2. I'm going to try to go 4-1 next time, or I'm taking it all, or whatever. You can look at yourself and there is just that kind of, you're competing against the field, you're competing with yourself. You know how you stack up. That's why even the painting rubric for things are so important. Oh, I need to see it because I need that extra point. And if I'm 1 point off, I need to know what I need to do differently next time to achieve this.
Don't get me wrong. When I was playing tournament play, I was playing for this. There was guys here that were setting up these tournaments regularly, and they had a painting rubric and they had a sportsmanship, the way you earned your sportsmanship score and everything. And I knew, well, look, I wanted to kind of win best overall or something along those lines. I wasn't going to win best general. I'm just not that good of a player, and I don't have that drive. I mean, there's people that just are quicker on that tactical stuff than I am. And so I would look at the thing and say, okay, well, if I'm not gonna score as well here, I'll score middle of the road in playing. I want to have a much higher paint score. So how do I, work on my painting and get my paint score up? And of course, I mean, I'm a friendly guy and people enjoy playing me, I hope. It sure seems, I've won multiple best sportsmanship awards, so I mean, I would definitely play the system. Don't get me wrong. I would definitely look at, okay, what's my goal and how do I get there? And okay, I'm not going to be able to achieve this. So let's rely on my strengths, which are these areas here. And, I'd do okay. I wouldn't do too shabby.
Yeah, but what we were saying, though, I mean, the actual playing and competing in the tournament, taking out your whole, especially some of these larger conventions, maybe not burning a whole day doing this one thing, locking you out of other things is what you want to do.
For sure.
At the same time, for tournaments that are just the tournament, there aren't these conventions built around them or whatever, there's still a lot of camaraderie and stuff. That's what I enjoy. That's actually what keeps me kind of addicted, as it were, to the tournaments, is just the camaraderie. Even where where, again, we enjoy it differently, but yet we met and hung out at one of these convention type. It happened to be a Adepticon where there are other, 4,000 of our closest friends now going on 6,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's that cross section, that camaraderie, and you meet people and you find, we talk about this on the show a lot. Like when you come to the table, I think it's easy for us to not understand that we have all these similarities with the guy across the table from us.
Look, I mean, we all fundamentally like the aesthetic of 40K. We must. I mean, it's so funny because you'll hear. I agree with you. I think fundamentally we all like the game. And then one of the things I like about it is its flexibility. But two things. Let me go back and address. You talked about I could go 2 and 3. I could go 3 and 4. Whatever your score is. Those are my scores.
You are not a tournament player,
right? Well, I mean, look, out of 7 games.
I was kidding.
But my point being is, I work in metrics all day at work, so I understand the value of here's the hard data, and here's what I'm trying to get, and here's how I'm measuring this. So seeing that improvement is a tangible thing you can look at. The improvement we tend to look at in my group is like, how much fun did we have? Did we do something bigger than we did last time? Did we create a new environment? That kind of thing. And those aren't quite as tangible as what you're talking about there. And the other thing that kind of sprung to mind when you said that was I recently just watched this video on YouTube where this guy was talking about this thing he called the Mario effect. And he's a YouTube presenter, but he was talking at a TED Talk thing. And he was talking about how people, and this is tangentially related, so I'm kind of going off on a tangent, how people, when they don't feel pressure to succeed at something, they tend to drive themselves harder, especially if there's no consequence. So, for example, they gave these people, like, here's this maze, and you would set up this little program to send your little robot through the maze. And in one group, they had no penalty if you failed. And in the other group, you started with 200 points. If you failed, it would say, okay, give it another try. You've lost 5 points. And it would start these made up points. And it was something on the internet. And they kind of watched the results of this. And the people who had no penalty would try more times than the people with a penalty and would succeed way more times than the people without. And so they were trying to look at how does that impact us. And so when you talk about tournament play, and this is where it kind of comes back to 40K, so bear with me. I mean, I just find it interesting that in my mind, tournament players, when they play a game and they lose, most successful tournament gamers are like, okay, where did I go wrong and how do I avoid that step next time? And the reason this guy called it the Mario effect was he compared it to playing Mario Brothers when he was a kid, and how, if you fell down a pit or whatever, you didn't just give up the game and leave. You would keep playing until now I got to remember, avoid that. And I think that probably tournament gamers have that kind of mentality where I failed, but I don't see it as a setback. I'm just like, okay, next time I need to remember use this psychic ability or, whatever.
That's interesting. I can see where you're coming from that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I'm kind of went far afield there, but I just found it a really interesting commentary, and I've been trying to apply it to not only how does that affect my work life, but also how does that affect gaming and learning about gaming and that kind of thing. I just found it kind of interesting. But yeah, back to the point. No, I'm not a tournament player. You are, but yes, we do have a lot of commonality that we talk about, and you and I could sit down and play a game and have a discussion about what kind of game do we want to play, and I could say, hey, Paul, teach me how to try to kick people's teeth in, and let's see how it goes. And I think we'd struggle a lot there. I'll be honest.
Oh, the game's won in the movement phase, Carl. I'll just tell you that.
Not this building phase? That's what I heard.
No, it could be, but mostly the movement phase.
You know what? That I actually agree with 100%. I think maneuverability is super huge.
Well, what are you working on right now? I know you said you had the Thousand Suns all done and the Big Demons. You got any future projects in mind for maybe some early 2019 resolutions you can share?
So for me right now, what I've been kind of doing, instead of going for like an annual goal of this is what I want to accomplish in 2019, I'm trying to break it down quarterly. So because those are a little more achievable. So for me, Q1 is all about terrain. I have this massive game room, as I was talking about, and I'm finding I need more terrain. Not only do I need city terrain, which I have quite a bit of, but I'm finishing getting all painted up as I've been using an airbrush a lot for that. And one of my friends, Brian, the guy that runs the Splinter Mind podcast, we're friends, and I saw him doing some commission work on some terrain, and it got me inspired to work on my terrain because I saw the way he was approaching it, and it's a very quick method.
Well, it's one of the easiest ways to kind of up your personal play, your play area, your hobby area. You know, you can get a couple of buildings and paint them up really nice, and it makes a big difference the way your board looks.
Like really quick, especially if you're an airbrusher, like it's just super quick. And so yeah, I'm gonna get all my terrain painted, but I also need to build. Like I want to learn how to build like outdoor terrain, like cliffs and rock sections and that kind of stuff. And I've watched tons of videos about it, but I've never actually.
Have you looked at like the model train makers and stuff? Because those people go get intense.
Right, they go. So I'm watching a few things there, and some of the guys like Justin on my show know how to do it and how to work through those pieces. So we're gonna try to set up some kind of day where we're just cutting foam and making terrain and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of my early year, and then hopefully mid-year Sisters of Battle come out, because that's going to be my focus for 2019 is Sisters of Battle.
You have to know that those models are going to be insane.
So good. I'm so looking forward to what they've done. I'm very interested to see like plastic penitent engines, plastic exorcists. I mean, man, can you imagine with the technology that they have today in the way they're making these plastics? I think this is going to be such a popular range. I think, I've already got a color scheme picked out. I was talking about it with somebody. My wife walked out. She goes, "We talking about my Sisters of Battle?" I go, "Oh yeah, your son."
That's right. Oh,
so what about you? What are you kind of focusing on 2019?
I've also been focusing on some terrain. There's this. I was watching someone make. It was cosplay stuff, and I saw them making a Stormbreaker, Thor's hammer from Avengers of Infinity War.
Yeah.
And the way that they made the wooden handle was covering rope with florist tape.
Oh, really?
Florist tape has this kind of texture to it, and it seemed to, you could bend the rope however you want, and then use the florist tape around it, and then paint it up like it's wood.
Would it harden at that point?
I don't know if it hardens. I mean, you would have to attach it to things still, I think.
Okay.
But to have that kind of outdoor type, the hills and the vines. I play Catachan, so I want to make like some jungle pieces and stuff.
Right.
And so that's my idea to use that, because I think the materials are super cheap. I think some rope you can get from a hardware store, and the floral tape you can get a pack of 3 for $7 or something like that. So plenty of room to. I like things that I can experiment with and mess up and not be out a lot.
Yeah, because then you learn from it, right? You have the Mario effect. You learn.
Ideally, yeah.
No implications to screwing up. You just, I screwed up. Let me try this thing differently next time. Yeah.
But having that with the mats, with all the various the neoprene mats and the cool things, having just themed tables. I mean, you could really make an impact to your gaming group. I mean, your gaming night, I guess, for a couple $100. So that's kind of on my agenda to do, and I have probably, I think, 3 tables done that I've done over the past year and a half or so.
Oh, wow.
And I want to switch it out. I also have a decent gaming area, or a decent sized gaming area with a couple tables. And so 2 or 3 times a year, we'll have a club tournament or a practice for another tournament or something down here. And it's kind of cool to break it out. Like everyone brings their signature pieces of terrain and stuff. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing it. We're proing this place up,"
Nice. Very nice.
But I'm working on orcs. I've talked about that on the show, so I won't bore people with that. That's going to be I think I've set it out to where I can get the army done if I stay on my own schedule, which is tough sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But I could probably get the whole army done in a couple of months.
Yeah, there's, the other thing that's really sparking my interest is I think we're going to see new Chaos Space Marine models coming out very soon, just your standard packs. I think I'm guessing a Blitz. The rumors you're going to see Abaddon after 76 days or whatever from now. Who knows if that's true, but I got a pretty good feeling about that. And I have a Black Legion army I was working on, but as soon as I kind of got wind that, hey, you know, maybe some new models would be coming, I put a stop to that because I didn't want to proceed with the old models.
Well, think about it. The Thousand Suns, when they came out, we were all like, yeah, the Thousand Suns are supposed to be bigger than the other Marines. That's why their models are larger. You know, that's what we thought. And then the Death Guard came out like, these are Primaris size.
Yeah. And I'm, you know, having seen this stuff from Blackstone Fortress, like I got a really good feeling about where they're going with this stuff. So I'm very, very excited about that.
These models, they look more complicated, but they're also a little bit easier to paint because the details are so much better defined.
They're so, yeah. I mean, if you've ever painted like a basic Chaos Space Marine at this point, like some of the edging just fades into nothing, you know, and you're like, where does this go? And you kind of fake it by adding, you know, some paint. So I'm very curious to see what they come up with. But,
I've been low key collecting Genestealer cults along the way. Now look, and that's not that it's been that hard. Genestealer cults have been in almost every box set they've released in some way. So it's real easy, like, oh, let me trade you something for those Genestealers you don't need or whatever, and then you just so now I've probably got half a shelf of Genestealers and various Genestealer cult neophytes and stuff that have been coming out. So
bikes and those buggy things coming.
Yeah, those are cool.
Those look sweet. So is this going to air soon? Is it?
It'll be next week. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be the week of the holiday, so it'll be the last week of the year, I think.
Okay, you mind if I drop some information then real quick?
Do it, man. Do it.
So in California, you may have heard that there was a fairly large fire. There have been a couple actually, but the largest of these fires, known as the Camp Fire, occurred in Butte County, which is north of me by a good 3 hours or so. The fire was so large that smoke blanketed basically half the state. California is a big state, I might add. It was so bad here in the Bay Area, again, that's 3 hours south of where this occurred, that masks were selling out in every, you know, Home Depot and such. It was the air quality was such that they were telling you stay inside, don't go outside, don't do activity.
It wasn't contained for a long time either, so people had no idea what to expect.
Right. In the end, something like 150,000 acres burned. There were around 14,000 houses were destroyed, and like 500 commercial buildings and like 4,200 other buildings or something along those lines. I mean, this is massive on a massive scale. And California is a big state. There's a lot of forests here, and it gets dry. And 88 people were killed in the process. Well, the town of Paradise, California was wiped off the map. It's gone. And a bunch of gamers in that area of the fire lost entire collections of games, Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, board games, all that kind of stuff. So one of these folks reached out to me at one point and was like, hey, you know, could you mention this? And I said, I think we could do a little better than that. And so we started collecting, you know, things for these people, primarily 40K and Age of Sigmar models. All the instructions are on the site at theindependentcharacters.com. If you go to our community section, there's a link under there called Campfire Relief for Gamers. We can accept donations up to January 2nd. On January 5th, I am taking, along with friends, because we've been receiving tons of stuff. We're taking multiple trucks up there full of game material to help, you know, these guys who've lost armies. And I mean, so, like, if you lost your collection, Paul, I mean, it's not just one army, right? But
no, it's the better part of my adult life.
Exactly. And so that's what's happened to some of these guys, but we're just trying to help them out by replacing an army and maybe a few extras and that kind of thing. So I was going to reach out to Games Workshop about it, but I made this post, and before I did, Games Workshop reached out to me. They have made a tremendous commitment. They are going to replace each of these players that we have a list of the players and their address I provide them. They're going to give them a 2,000 point army. GW Heavy Metal Team and Duncan and those guys are going to paint up a single HQ model for each of the armies for these guys while they do a live stream and take donations towards the Campfire Relief thing during that live stream that they're going to do. We're trying to work out the date of the live stream. I'm going out to the UK, so I may even be there for that. And then
let me know when.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to let you know. They're going to post all that information on the Community Games Workshop site. And so, you know, we're taking all this stuff up there. Table War has donated something like 15 Table War cases to this group, along with a bunch of mats and a bunch of other goodies. Our listeners in particular have donated a huge pile. In my gamer right now, there is a massive pile of boxes I haven't even opened that I have to go through and sort for each of these gamers. And we're just trying to help out.
We opened the show with this.
Okay.
By the time people hear this, I guess a couple of weeks ago, whenever you first started that, we actually opened the show with it too. It's really important to us. To really nice to see what you're doing. It's really great to hear it in your words.
Well, let me tell you, the turnout has been fantastic, and I cannot imagine what these people are going through, losing an entire house. And like as I was chatting,
you lost everything. You lost your change of clothes, all the stuff you wear to work. You're displaced. You don't know what's going to happen even in this.
Yeah. In some cases, I mean, for me, like if my house burned down, I have family in the area I could move to and they could help out while we figure things out. In some cases, these people lost 3 generations of homes. There's nowhere to go,
Yeah.
So, I was talking with one of these guys, and after Games Workshop was kicking in all this support, I told the guy, I go, man, I'm almost jealous. I go, but, I still have a house,
It's unimaginable. It's easy to joke like that though, man, but it really is unimaginable when something like that happens. And we are people that look out for our own, and there is this common bond between everyone that shares the lore, the game,
for sure,
the experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. For all I know, these guys are tournament players.
And that's okay, Carl.
But they still deserve my help. And so, listen, people have been incredibly generous. The donations need to keep rolling in, but we're doing a ton of good, and I'm super excited about it. So, if you have any models sitting around that you're like, I'm never going to use these things, there's instructions on where to send them and how to help. Or if you just want to buy something directly from GW and have it shipped to us so we can get it to them, all those instructions are there too. There's a wish list that you can go look at for the things that they've added to this list. And
I'll make sure it makes its way into the show notes.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really, really appreciate it. And these folks will really appreciate it too.
I'm happy to do it. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're going through, and especially during this time period, and if anybody can help take just some of that worry off, then sometimes it's just nice to know that somebody else out there cares what's up. You may not be able to do anything, but if you know that somebody somewhere else out there is sharing a little bit of that even that mental burden, it helps.
It just helps when people understand what you're going through, right? Yeah. Like, and some of these guys, like, we're bringing this stuff and they're like, I don't have anywhere to store it, and we're like, so they've worked out, we could store it here at the store, we could store it with friends, so it's all taken care of. But we're just trying to help out.
Yeah,
so.
That's great, man. Real happy to hear it. And like I said, we will make sure that this gets in the links for what you were talking about, make it into the show notes.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate everybody who's kicked in. Kind of going back to our original topic, I didn't mean to.
I was going to bring it up anyway, but so I'm glad that you did. It's really nice to hear have it fully detailed and explained, so people can really appreciate what happened. I mean, you're out there. I mean, I'm over here on the opposite coast, but you're really over there. And even I know you mentioned you're far away, but this was, I mean, it was very terrible. I mean, that's really and nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, that's what us looking out from the outside in.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because people would call and be like, "Oh, is the fire near you?" I'm like, dude, that fire is so far away from me, but the smoke is here. And it's hard. The United States is a big country. I mean, people don't realize, and especially people in Europe don't realize just quite how big it is. California itself is so long, I mean, it takes forever to drive from one end of California to the other. Right? It's a 12-hour, 13-hour drive. It's a big country, and people don't seem to realize. I remember during the Loma Prieta earthquake that happened here in the late 80s, early 90s, I was stationed in Belgium at the time, and the only coverage I could see was part of the Bay Bridge had collapsed, and it looked like California was sinking into the ocean by all the coverage. And believe it or not, California is not just San Francisco and Los Angeles connected by a big beach with earthquakes. It's there's a lot to this state, but that fire did a tremendous amount of damage. It's don't fool with Mother Nature, right?
No, she wins every time. That's basically it. So changing gears a little bit, you mentioned you're playing Kill Team. This coming up in Are you coming to the LVO?
You know what? I'm going to be in Las Vegas at the time. I don't think I'm coming directly to the LVO, but I will be kind of around that area hanging out with friends. We're going to dinners and the last LVO, I got very, very sick, and I had bought this beautiful hotel room for my wife and I overlooking the Bellagio, and I was sick the whole time. So we're trying to get that same room and just, relax a little bit. So I'm sure I'll be around in the evenings if you're going to be there.
I'm coming.
We should definitely hook up in the evening and hang out a bit.
So you mentioned you're playing in the Kill Team at Adepticon.
Yes.
What are you bringing for that? Kill Team is popular. I know whole groups of people that have dusted off their old models, getting new stuff, playing Kill Team is great.
They're so fast. I mean, if you have a bad game, you just re-rack and you're playing again so quickly. And I really want to run a campaign for it at some point, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to be bringing my Thousand Sons to that just because they're super fun to play in Kill Team, and we'll see how that goes. I'm just there to hang out.
They're strong. If you don't win the majority of your games, we're going to have a talk.
I'm doing pretty good with them. You get a Psyker, so you get that smite. Unless I blow my own head up, which I've done a couple times in the first turn. I do pretty good with that. It's not called smite; it's called Psybolt or whatever they call it. But their resistance, they're surprisingly resistant. Thousand Sons are surprisingly durable. Death Guard do quite well in Kill Team as well.
That's I played that too, and if sometimes it feels, if you're rolling hot, it's like easy mode.
Oh my god! I mean, that guy with the flail can just crush, in Kill Team. That -2 AP. And then I have one guy with the heavy, whatever the cannon is.
The Reaper, the auto, it's some kind of Hades auto cannon or something like that.
Soul Reaper auto cannon.
That's it, yeah.
That thing's brutal too, especially you make him your heavy weapon specials. He's shooting 5 times with that thing and just -3 AP, strength 5. Eventually he whittles people down. So it's a fun list to play. It's a fun list to play against too.
And the miniatures look cool. I mean, that's the case with all this stuff, but
so good.
Yeah,
so
it was an excuse for me to paint up some Death Guard Marines. Like I have a Death Guard army from back in the day, like 3rd edition, 3.5 edition.
Yeah,
that was just using all the brand new Death Guard models. I couldn't resist.
So good. They're so good. I steered away from the Death Guard just because I had done them for so long. I have a huge Forge World Death Guard army that's no longer playable because they can't be equipped the way they're equipped. But I mean, the new models are great. I have a bunch of them. I just haven't even assembled or painted them up because I kind of need to be my own special snowflake. And the great thing about the Thousand Sons, from my perspective, I mean, I had mine commission painted for a very good reason. They are a pain in paint.
Oh my goodness! With all like the transitions from the blues to yellows or whatever it is.
Colin and I laugh a lot because what will happen is you inevitably this is what happens. So he's like, I'm going to start a Thousand Sons army, and they buy all this stuff, and the next thing you know, you see it on eBay, and what happens is you have 2 squads that are assembled. One is started to be painted. The other one's prime blue, and the rest is all new in box. And they're like, I'm selling a Thousand Sons army. And they're like, yep, that's right.
Oh, man. Well, Carl, thanks a lot for coming on and talking with me.
Paul, it's always a pleasure, man. I am so looking forward to seeing you, and I will see you at LVO then.
Yeah. We're going to do it. We're going to have to hang out. That I was like a fixture in that bar there. It's coming out. But,
there we go.
So if people aren't aware of where to find your show, you have a podcast.
Yep.
You've got a community page. You got a website. If they aren't aware already where to find it, where can they find you?
So theindependentcharacters.com. That's independent.
No one knows how to spell that.
Independent with an E. Independent does not have an A in it. In fact, one of our listeners actually bought the independent with an A characters.com. And if you go to it, it says you were probably looking for this website. And it's like a common car picture on the page, and he's pointing you to the right website.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I didn't mean to switch off. So again, independentcharacters.com.
Yeah, theindependentcharacters.com is our website. You can find everything from there, from our community page to whatever. You can find us on iTunes. Any of your podcast feeds will have it. So we've been around for about 8-9 years, and took a break for a couple years ago, but we've been back for a long time and still going strong.
Yeah, you guys are part of the first generation, as far as I consider, of podcast. I'm the second generation.
I'd say second.
You are old, is what I'm saying, and I'm not as old as you. That's what.
40K Radio, and I like to think 40K Radio, Imperial Voxcast, those guys were out before us, but we kind of spun off of their heels and kind of dove in right at the perfect time where those were kind of winding down. And at the time, there were very few 40K podcasts. Now there's a ton of them.
Well, you still guys are going great. You have longer shows. What you guys do, for anybody that might not be aware, is you actually take some real deep dives down into the lore. You explore more of the hobby side, the joy of it, of that side of everything, and how the lore combines with what your tabletop experiences are. It's a good time, is what it is.
We're often, we really focus on what we enjoy about the hobby. We're often called sycophants for Games Workshop, which I don't take offense to, whatever. I'm a fanboy of Warhammer 40,000, and the things we don't talk about are typically the things we don't care too much about. But if it's about 40K or 30K or Kill Team, anything in the 40K universe, I like to say, so role-playing games, board games, et cetera, we're all about it.
Awesome, man. Well, Carl, have a good rest of your night, some happy holidays if we don't chat before the end of the year.
Same to you, my friend, and we will see you next year.
See you, man.
We're sponsored by Fermaterra. With their sturdy, lightweight and portable tables, you can make war anywhere. Please visit them at www.fermaterra.com.
Hey everybody, we are back. Hope you enjoyed that segment as much as I had enjoyed doing it. I got Val and Chris here.
Still not Carl Tuttle.
Hasn't chased me off yet.
Oh, we start talking some hard numbers, Val. It's gonna be a good, I think, year for the show as we're doing our road to LVO. After that, we'll be talking about Adepticon, and then after that, getting towards Nova.
ATC in there somewhere, I bet.
ATC, I'm actually going to be promoting a tournament that I'll be helping run as well. Going to be starting that coverage and information about that right after the first year. So the next episode. That's going to be in April. It's just going to continue to have great years with FTN, and we really appreciate everyone that's come along with us. People that have been listening from the beginning and grown with us over the years, and new listeners, and everyone that interacts with us and encourages to keep on doing what we do.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. Just the continual growth of the show has been fantastic, and especially from my perspective, where I started off as a listener before coming onto the show as part of the crew. So it's really cool.
I got Mr. Brandt committed to be more of a regular on the show. I think that's gonna help us get some different perspectives going. Mr. Val.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna twist your arm, get you committed to being part of more shows?
Oh, hardly an arm twist, but I'd be happy to be here more on the regular.
Well, I think that us talking about more of the actual preparedness and what you see, what you actually see on the tables, backed up by some statistics of all these people out there that are starting to gather this data. From what people are actually playing and winning with at tournaments around the world, not just in our local area, but everywhere. So I'm hoping that we might be able to either confirm some people's suspicions about what's out there, or give people some maybe things that they can sprinkle into their current, local list or whatever, to really spice up their game night.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk a lot of the how, but there's just a lot of news to report out there these days, and a lot of actual facts that you can talk about. So, it'd be great to have a whole variety of topics and sources to yammer on about for our dear listeners.
Yeah, and a real quick aside, speaking of things to help encourage people to continue doing what they're doing, the Warhammer Heroes nominations are open until December 31st, so maybe a couple of days after you hear this show.
It's an honor just to be nominated, Paul, and I appreciate it.
Well, it is an honor to be nominated, but this is one of those things to where this is really an opportunity to nominate some people that don't have a platform to talk about what they do. They're just out there doing it, possibly unsung, as it were. And I think this is a great opportunity to nominate them. The winners from last year were people that are doing great things, but, maybe not names you would have recognized in casual conversation in the community on forums or chat groups or whatever. And so I think that this mechanism that Games Workshop has put in place is a great way to really, recognize those people and to give them a shout out. I mean, just that, and that's kind of what you're doing. You're letting the company know what these people are doing, being great ambassadors of the hobby, and that they may not have otherwise known about or recognized in any other way. So do that. That's going to be, the nominations for that are going to be open until December 31st of this year, 2018.
Yeah, I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, if there is someone out there who, you know, is integral to your gaming community, or even maybe branches out even beyond that, and is a great organizer, or just adds to your good times, then you know, it is an honor just to be nominated. It'd be nice for someone like that to get that kind of kudos. So take the time take the time to shout out those that you appreciate.
Yep, it'll mean a lot to them too. Absolutely.
Top Gun references aside. Is anybody alive that knows what that is anymore?
Yeah, I think so.
Top Gun?
So.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I had an F-14 Tomcat squirt gun as a kid. I would fly it around the house with Top Gun on the TV.
Yeah. So we're talking about New Year's resolutions in the segment that we opened the show with. Any y'all got any others? I mean, no time like the present to plan.
Well, we were kind of joking during the break that should I commit to a new army in the new year? And gosh, can I do it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I suggested, you know, just do a spin-off chapter. Just go flush terrors. Stay close to home.
Everybody needs an excuse to paint up Seth. That is a great model.
Now, I do have a Gabriel Seth model that I just have because I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's cool.
Him and 9 aggressors. Now,
so there's
a few things I'm thinking about.
I don't mean to encourage you, but yeah, let's take the bait here. What has even caught your eye? I mean, is there another red army out there? Like, what is it?
The 8.
I am pretty fond of Adeptus Custodes. I do like the Custodes.
All right.
I like armies that you can use in both 30K and 40K because I still play both games. So that's another thing that makes them attractive. Is it's an army that I can play in 2 systems. So I do like that quite a bit. I'm also interested in Necrons a little bit. Here's the thing, like, if I'm building a Necron army, I'm not really building it because I want to be competitive with it. I'm building it because I want to have cool Catan star gods running around the table and blasting people with cosmic rays, like the Silver Surfer on crack. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what has me interested in Necrons. And they'd make a good bad guy for my son, because my son, he's working on his Ultramarines.
Okay.
So his favorite color is blue, and until like last week when it changed back to red because he loves me. But his Marines are staying blue, and Necrons are pretty good so far as Grimdark goes, as long as you stay away from like the what are they called, the flayed ones. They're a pretty PG army.
Not too bad, just zombies.
Yeah, just metal skeleton bros.
And Necrons are a good buy low candidate as well. You could probably grab them by the bucket load.
The ceiling on them is high too. Like, you have to imagine that it's only going to get better for them.
Yep. So that's something that I could do.
There's people think Necrons are not a hobby showcase army, but they do lend themselves. If you look for the opportunity, you can step it up some.
Well, I have the getting started box that I got when my son got his Space Marines getting started box, and that could be a good launching point for it. And I remember I think I've got, and this is something that's not made anymore, but the Citadel tints, where it's like the powdered pigment that you can mix in with the metallics.
There's all the recipes for how many things of how many scoops to put in mithril silver or whatever.
Yeah, and I figure for a smaller army, not something like huge, but for a smaller army, I could mix some interesting metallics to use for them to make it look a little bit more.
Let me tell you, let me jump in with some old man hobby advice right now. Don't do anything that you can't replicate in 5 years. And so, if you're going to use all the tints right now and don't have them when you want to expand the army, don't do it.
Well, then I'll never use the tints.
Well, then just make it.
Is it better to
sell them on eBay,
have tinted and lost than
sell
to
them on
have
eBay
never
to
tinted
someone
at all?
who did use them 5 years ago?
That's it. You're now become a supplier for someone that's looking for that enchanted blue.
They're desperate for it as well. You're probably getting a lot of Necrons.
We'll see what their offer is when they message the Facebook page. It's like, hey, I heard you got some tints.
But this is one
It's
of
like
those
that
things.
random post you'll see for like a desperate plea for snake bite leather every now and again or something like that.
Yeah. I need some 10 bits like nobody's business, man.
10 bits. Oh my God.
But this is one of those things for when you're planning out an army. It's tough sometimes. Like, I don't think we could have anticipated some of the color changes that we have had. But I think that now that we see this as something that can and does happen, that we shouldn't necessarily set out to sabotage ourselves. And I'm only half joking, when I say I'm only half joking when I say not to do it or whatever. I'm slightly joking. Do whatever you're gonna want to do, because they could last you a long time. You could easily do 1,000 points to face off against some other anybody you want to play against or whatever. I mean, I'm sure you can do that. But I'm just thinking long term. I know I've been on the quest. Like, I was on a quest for Emerald Green forever and finally gave up and just repainted the whole army.
And that's what I'm trying to stay away from. That's one of the reasons that I haven't wanted to do an airbrush with my Blood Angels, is just because then maybe like 9 models out of the whole army that I'm fielding will look different enough from the others that it doesn't match anymore. And then I don't want to go back and redo the whole thing. So, but if I did a new army, then that would be a good excuse. Well, here's a really good one. Here's one that I think is achievable. So my resolution is this year, I will learn how to use an airbrush.
That's a good one.
That's a super good one, actually.
Yeah.
For a guy who really enjoys the hobby like you do, airbrush. I think an airbrush would unlock like a whole other world of ways to paint and get things done. So,
and what better than a new army to test it out on?
Sure.
And that way everything looks right together. So, all right, we'll do airbrushing for my resolution this year.
That's a really strong one. It's not a huge barrier to entry. Everyone asks, like, what should I get? What kind of compressor should I get? What kind of airbrush should I get? And people asked, it comes up. I see it twice a day in groups. People ask what they should get. And go ahead.
I'll just cut you off right there. Any compressor whatsoever and Badger Patriot done.
Yeah, Badger's good. I use the
Patriot 105.
I've got the 105. I have the brush. I don't have any of the hookups or anything for it. I don't have the compressor. I don't have like a hose. I don't have any of like I don't have any of the real kit.
Get on down to your Harbor Freight.
Whatever $70 gets you at Harbor Freight.
Done.
That's pretty. And people tell me, you're so wrong, Paul. Like, really? I've been using this $70 beater for 5 years. And people say, well, you might have water in your tank. You know what? I'm not good enough to notice.
Aren't you supposed to thin your paints? Come on.
Well, I mean, you want, it does what I want it to do. And if I want to get better or I want to step it up or whatever, I've never had a job that my airbrush and compressor could not achieve. When you're just starting out, there's no reason you should go and sink more than $350. You probably want to be south of $250.
Yep. And you can do it too.
Yeah. Especially you utilize the coupon.
You guys have Michaels down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Coupon.
Yeah.
40% off coupon. Get it done.
I'm just going to have to find a way to finagle it where I'm living in an apartment. And most of my hobby time is at night. So if getting a tanked compressor that's a little bit more expensive means that it doesn't make as much noise or as often,
I bought a tank compressor from Michaels.
Yeah.
No problem.
You're doing it right now. Listen, man, whatever $70 at Harbor Freight gets you.
Fair enough.
There is no any other answer than that. And then after you start getting good, you may want something that has a little bit more finesse or easier way to change the pressure, which, by the way, all of the $70 version has a way to twist and change the compressor. You might want a different kind of hose. You might decide you want attachments, but you don't. Again, that's up to you after you actually learn to do it. Like, I
also never paint on anything less than 100% PSI of whatever I got. Just full. Always.
Okay.
Always full.
Real hobby advice here, guys.
That's true. Honestly, number one,
give 110%.
Number one thing is with airbrushing is getting to the point where you're competent enough that it doesn't jam up on you all the time, because that's just the most frustrating part. And then once you learn that kind of groove, and there's lots of great YouTube tutorials that'll teach you about that. Once you figure out that groove, then you can actually start having fun with it. But you can learn how to keep an airbrush flowing with any airbrush. You don't need $5 million worth of kit to do that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Paul and I have given you all the advice.
Airbrush seminars at Adepticon. I'm on the wait list for. So we'll see if I can hop in on one of those too. Just that I have to say the thing I have the most trepidation about so far as the airbrush. I love the idea. I love the time saving and all that. It's the maintenance. It's the the pin gets wrecked, or you spend 5 minutes brushing and then you spend 30 minutes unclogging.
Have you ever seen Full Metal Jacket? Like Gomer Pyle when he's like sort of disassembling his rifle in a really creepy way. You just get like that eventually, and you're good.
It's not even.
You put it and then you put it all.
Creepy airbrush Full Metal Jacket guy. Got it.
Yeah,
I may clean my airbrush once a year.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't get away with that.
I'm talking about, but I do clean it after every time I use it. And then sometimes that's not enough. Like paint will collect, especially when you're trying to push some of these high pigment acrylic paints through it.
Like I do a lot of undercoating. Like I do a lot of priming. So like I can't, I have to do thorough cleaning a lot, but that's fine.
Fair. It's but
by the way, for our friend Chris, like thorough cleaning means you take it apart and you put it in a shot glass with a cleaning solution. Like that's what cleaning, that's what intense cleaning is. It's not hard. It's easy.
I'd finally have a use for a shot glass.
There you go, buddy.
I do also I'll scrub out and I keep the needle clean, and I have a tube. It's not a tube, whatever, a cylinder of the airbrush lube, whatever. I dip the needle in every now and then. It works. So setup works.
Okay, I'm gonna say for sure then this year I'm gonna learn how to airbrush, and then when we do this at the end of the year, provided I survive, then we can look back and just be like, so a year ago, you were still doing things with the brush. And then we will see if it holds true to the trend. It's just like, my life has changed forever. What have I been doing?
It's just fun. I really enjoy the fact that I have like a really specific kind of archaic tool also at this point. Like apparently all the airbrushes that are used for miniature painting were for photography touch-ups. I might be talking about. I think that's what it was from. Like original airbrushing was for doing photographic work, and now it's all used for painting toy soldiers.
Very interesting.
Yep, there you go. Yeah. And I might have made that factoid up, so please get at Paul Murphy for spreading facts that were incorrect if they were incorrect.
Leave that.
Warmaster TPM on Twitter.
Get at it.
I'll take it. I like to hear, what other people are doing, especially if they're what other people's hobby resolutions are. I mean, they're fun to make. And I think it's cool to set some attainable goals.
Okay.
Last week we did a segment for new players, and we did it at the end of the show. And I promised myself we would do it at the beginning of the show this week, and we obviously failed.
Good thing you got one more week for resolutions, Paul.
Well, I haven't. I haven't gotten a resolution in yet.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I resolved to paint 70 Shoot-It Boys faster than Paul can paint 70 Shoot-It Boys.
Ooh, the gauntlet is thrown.
Oh, let me know when you. Okay, my orc count. I did get 20 Ludas done.
Yeah, you've been hauling.
I kit bashed a Weird Boy, which I love how he turned out.
I love the Weird Knob so much, though. I was surprised you felt the need to change that model.
Okay.
Switch it around?
Because I know I'm going to want more than one.
Fair.
So that guy's always going to be available.
I have 5 Weird Boys. Each one is a different model, and 4 of them are just shamans from Sigmar. There's so many awesome.
I grabbed one of the orc shamans. I love that one that's kind of hunched over with the hood up.
With the bone.
Yeah, with the bone staff. I love that one.
I would love to engage someone who can 3D print and just size them up. Just give me like a guy who's like one size bigger. Give me the next row up in the Russian doll, because that guy is so tiny.
And
I have him on the tallest base.
That I put I replaced. He's got the other guy. I forget what the actual name of the model, but it's that plastic model. The shaman with it could be Warzak, whatever, it could be Warzak. The shaman with the robes, and he's got the staff with the smoking skull on it.
Yeah, that's the guy you changed. That's the guy you kit bashed.
If you don't,
he's a Weird Knob.
Well, he is now.
No, that's what they're called in Sigmar. It's Weird Knobs.
Oh,
yeah, they're Weird Boys in 40K, and they're Weird Knobs.
Okay, well, cool. Yes, that's what he is. But he has all these robes and stuff on it, and one of the arm robes is attached to his head, but you're supposed to put this kind of bone thing on. Well, I used a head from the Knob kit and didn't put the robes on. I just put but his physique is under that robe, so you don't have to do it. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. That model goes together really cool.
Yeah, it did, and I put a Shuda on his back. Made a couple other little 40K little additions, just gluing on plastic parts.
I have one dude who's converted from a Savage Orc boss, and he's like one of the best orc sculpts in all of Citadel. But he's like this fairly he was beefy in his day, but now he's like basically knob-sized orc with this like axe that he's like swinging with two hands. And he's got this really awesome dynamic pose. He's got this amazing dynamic pose.
Oh, it's swinging him behind his head? The axe is behind his head?
He's just sort of in a headlong charge with a giant axe about to beat some face. Yeah. But I have him converted into a weird boy. Also an excellent model to use.
But keep that in mind. Let me know when you're ready to throw down with this challenge.
So I'm just waiting on my boys in Poland, Cromlech and Spellcrow, to come forward with the stuff I ordered on Black Friday. Still hasn't made it to me. So as soon as it's here, I will be primed and ready to go.
We'll set some parameters for this challenge. You won the last one.
It was a bit sketchy. I mean, we did have an unequal amount of models to get through.
Look, I committed to doing the 60. I didn't know you had to do 45 in the beginning.
Well, I also started after about halfway through you getting through stuff. So, I think it all evened out in the end. But
you
70
won.
boys each.
Not complaining.
I
still got the stuff done. I was a couple of days late, but I'm still 60 Gretchen up.
Oh, heck yeah. I think that's one of my general resolutions is to do more, is not to get so focused on like the largeness of a project and just chip away at it. Just do a little bit every night. Like there's that literally the group 1 hour a night. And you can take for granted how much sense that makes, because it feels so good to make tangible progress. You might have your work challenges or your life challenges or whatever, but you can get a little bit of pain out of a model and it will make you feel good. There's a 100% chance of feeling good after doing a little bit of hobby work.
Yeah, I agree. I mentioned on Twitter that these could have just been the same 5 Ludas recycled in different positions for the pictures. But no, I really did all the 20 something Ludas.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, the fraud will show itself when you bring them to the table.
Yeah. Now, I'm happy with the way the Orc Army is going. I want to try to break it up, do a couple of, but I've also got to do Adepticon prep. So they expect some Adepticon models getting pictures of soon for the team tournament, which is, its own animal.
But what are you guys doing this year?
I don't want to give away the whole army just yet. I will talk about it as we get closer, but I'm going to be doing some conversions / kit bashes, and there's going to be a nice theme to the army.
You trying to go for the 3-peat?
Of 3-time best sportsman.
Yeah, man.
It's a dynasty of sportsmanship.
You're the Bill Belichick of sportsmanship.
That's right. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it's so they expect some of that, a lot of hobby progress. But whatever. I like jamming on figures, and it's fun to kind of have this idea of move around, do some kit bashes, interesting kit bashes for some guard figures. It's not just guards. There's gonna be some other things in there. So look forward to that. Look forward to showing that off, and look forward to the team coming together again. It's a great event, but we have a lot of things to get through before we get to that, and I say including the LVO. So road to the LVO is serious. I know people are army prepping for it even as we speak, including you, Val.
Yes, absolutely.
You want to call your shot? Let me know what's some secret sauce in your army.
I'm getting my judge eyebrows ready.
I'm
flex
trying
those every day.
I'm trying very hard to decide if I want to snowflake the list at all or just take the best performing tournament orc list that I've been watching for a little while, piloted by a good friend of mine, Stephen Pamperine. I might just follow whatever he's doing. We'll see. But I am looking at sort of the fact that LVO has the enclosed terrain, it has enclosed ruins, or it just has really heavy ruins, even on tables without the full squares. So infantry is very powerful, and orcs happen to have some powerful infantry. Do you just go with the big mobs, or do you bring in a wrinkle, like, say, Mega Knobs, which I'm looking at? No idea if this is a good idea, guys. There's probably anywhere between 400 and 500 points of wiggle room in what's probably the best orc build available. And so that wrinkle will make all the difference.
I think it's one of those things that's going to get you turn a close game into a win is Mega Knobs.
And then how many of them, right? Or even Ludas are an interesting question. How many do you really need? It's.
I think the thing that Mega Knobs do for an orc army is make it tougher for orc armies to kill them. 2-up saves can be really, really tough to get through.
Yeah, if you're swinging 140 times, it doesn't matter how many 2-up saves you got. Although, yeah, I don't know.
Well, if you're fighting me, yes, but under normal statistical circumstances.
I think orcs do. It's more it's the matchup against the other 2-up save things. I think you're right. Meganups might provide a bit of an answer. Other things are like, what are the mortal wound sources? Because I feel like the big, and I don't know that this is actually going to be a thing, but I suspect that those brick infantry units, things that are, mid-range toughness, infantry keyword, either a high-end vuln save or a low armor or a low armor save, or a combination of both, probably feel no pain. Things like your Wraith Blades, your famous Blightlord Terminators, Grotesques. I think you'll see a lot of armies that have one big hardcore unit like that can swing into a rune and take out whatever's in it.
And use it
and survive.
They just kind of, and they can get back into it without taking too many casualties themselves, and kind of use it as a pivot to get in and out of.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like those guys suffer a lot from just being exposed to the elements, so if you can't bring your big heavy guns to bear on those types of units, with weight of fire or whatever, then they do have a very good chance of being able to get close enough to do their damage. So Meganubs would be orcs kind of that style of unit. I don't know if they necessarily need to have that style of a unit, but I don't know. It's gonna be fun theory hammering this. I think honestly, even just going with a unit of a whole lot, like an army of a lot of boys, Ludas, and just go have some fun. I think that army is going to do very, very well.
You could easily win every game with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It just depends on your draws too, right?
Well, sure, but you got to play the odds though about what you expect to see in the field. I think that you're going to see a block of 10 Grotesque on a lot of tables, a fair amount of tables. Yeah. I think you're going to see, the Horde armies, you're going to see tons of boys.
Yeah. The Orc on Orcs, like the Orcs mirror match, will be an interesting one. I honestly, guys, don't know how prevalent Orcs will be in the like, and I don't know like how competitive I'm going to be at this tournament, but if you're say a 3-win person, or if you've gotten say 3 wins plus, I don't know how many Orcs you're going to see at that tier of competition. I think you're still going to see a lot of the same usual suspects, a lot of Imperium, a lot of Eldari. I don't think you see a ton of Orcs just because there isn't the player base necessarily.
Well, do you think the Orcs are going to be the terror of the middle tables? I mean, that also factors in what you play. If you plan on living in that middle table zone,
I don't know. I think at their peak there was something like 7 or 8% of the meta right after 8th edition switched. So that's probably a good representative. That's probably a good representation of how popular Orcs are as a franchise. Because when 8th edition dropped, everyone just played what they wish they could be playing in 7th, right? So I think that's kind of how it went. No one played Eldar when 8th dropped.
Yeah.
So I would suspect something around, the 7-ish percent, is what you would see for Orcs. Now, to put that in a frame of reference, like things like Knights throughout the summer were anywhere between 14 and like 15% of the meta. Like that's a big difference. You're much more likely to see a Knight.
You're going to see a Knight.
Probably less. Probably less so than you would
see Knights because it's painting one thing.
Yeah, you'll see them
not a billion things.
Well, you'll see them less than you would have, especially actually Knights primary. I think you'll see them less
for sure
than you would have. But they just don't do as well in this environment because of the frontline gaming terrain, which is its own animal. So sure. I think that's.
No, there's
the good example is last year. The Shining Spear Ynnari wins ITC at the same time. Overseas, 7 Flying Hive Tyrants was dominating the meta, and so the Europeans are like, well, why didn't Tyranids win LVO? And the answer is magical boxes. And then Adepticon happens, and immediately, Matt Root shows up with 1 billion Flying Hive Tyrants and wins that tournament. So there was nothing magical about them. It's just the fact that the LVO is a different beast, and I think it's largely a different thing because of the type of terrain it has.
I can agree with that. It's definitely a factor. With that in mind, though, what you were talking about with what are those pivot units, people are planning to do that. They're planning to take them. That's part of the strategy of people that are setting out to win the tournament.
Yeah.
If your army has one of those, do you think that you should be taking it? Yeah. I mean, like if you're playing Drukhari, do you think if you don't have the 10 block Grotesque, you're doing it wrong?
Well, I think that is an army build style, right? Like I don't know that. For example, I don't know if having an equivalent amount of Orc boys isn't a better call than having the Meganups or Commandos for that matter. So
you don't think though? I mean, guys, my point is I think that at some point you get some diminishing returns
Sure.
On the boys. I mean, but I don't know when that is. Is it because someone has taken a pile of scatter lasers and that's who you're fighting? I mean, I don't know what it is. Mega Knobs, you're right. Point for point, there may be, it may be better to have, how many points? Mega Knob is about 40 something points.
Well, it's 35, I think, with the claw, 40 something with the kill saws.
Yeah, kill saws, or if you want to put a scorch out or something on it.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that though. Although I have seen a really hilarious / intriguing I did like list concept, which was 2 units of 10, but with combi rockets as bad moons. So you mob them up, you drop them down. They can shoot twice, so that's like 40 rocket shots with more DACA, plus the custom shoot is on there. I thought it was kind of a hilarious and intriguing sort of Death Star.
That may catch you by
surprise. Yeah.
But then they can't score any objectives, or they can score one objective really well.
Well, I mean that's like 600 points. Like, I don't know, 700 points. Like, you still got a lot of army outside of that unit. But anyway, that's more silly, I think. Maybe, I don't know, than real. But who knows what we'll see? That's the cool thing about something like the LVO is there's so many players that there's a humongous opportunity for interesting things to bubble up.
Well, that's why I think it's so fascinating to speculate about. Is that I think there's a few different ways to look at it. You look at it as an archetype of list that you're going to see, and then an archetype of a list you is going to beat the largest percentage of the field. And I don't mean 51% of the field. I mean, what is the highest percentage of things you're going to see there, and then how do you plan to fight that? Because I'd say you're going to encounter that at some point in your journey, so you got to be prepared to fight whatever that is.
Well, here's something. I mean, because the LVO is actually going to have a submission deadline this year, which is, I think, 2, maybe 3 weeks out, we'll know exactly what the field looks like. Of course, after you've made your army list.
Yeah, I'm saying for the people that are preparing.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, you can look at stuff like 40kstats.com, which will provide you a very good snapshot of what the current meta looks like, especially the American GT meta. It's very actually complete snapshot. So you'll be able to make an educated guess about what the most likely things you will see out there will be. And you can also look to see what the most consistently winning lists, and especially lists that win in a row rather than just as a percentage, are. So it's a really great tool if you want to actually just get an idea of what you might be seeing out there.
We talked about this a little bit on the last show, but I think that the fundamentals of where you are at, where you need to be at with building your list for a tournament like this, that has the ITC missions and the terrain itself, is you've got to be able to try to hold more and kill more, which is that's the essay. You need your consistent points every turn, and then you need to be able to complete objectives for the secondaries that don't rely on your opponent being complicit with that goal.
That was a really nice little nugget from the last episode. I liked that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to tell, what they're not going to cooperate with.
Oh, sure.
Like you might think something like Recon's well in your control, and then they just block you out, and there's nothing you can do.
But that's part of the game, right? But I think that if you can focus on making it harder for your opponent to choose the secondaries, that's where I think some of the key is designing your list in a way that is harder for your opponent. I'm going to automatically pick this. I'm going to automatically pick that, and so they don't make any mistakes in that early part of the game. Now, to the other point though, is don't compromise the effectiveness of your list just to obfuscate some secondary points.
Yeah,
and I think it's a thin line there.
I don't know. I think when there were some more obvious things that you could do, it was less of it was a no-brainer to take units of 9 instead of 10 for a while there. But now
yeah, for sure.
Now the secondaries are not, because they're less binary, I guess. They're harder to play defense on at the list construction level. Except for maybe some, obvious, Kingslayer targets or whatever.
Kingslayer or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. But, in general, any list is going to be vulnerable to 3 of those things. Although some do still feel like they're hard to pick against. But in those ones, maybe you go for more board control type stuff. And maybe that is also what orcs are good at.
I think that's
to bring it back to orcs.
Well, I think board control is going to be ultimately what wins the tournament.
Well, last year was there's a third option too, Paul, and that's just kill the other guy.
Oh no, you definitely got to be able to hold more and kill more. But I think that holding more,
kill them.
And holding more areas of the table is what's going to win out above that. Is what my actual prediction is.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. It makes for a more interesting game.
But I'm a big fan of killing things with my pieces.
Yeah.
Doing all the pew-pews I can and having you put models.
Mr. 6 Crimson Hunters or what have you.
3 Hemlocks and 1 Crimson Hunter.
There you go. Sorry. I overstated the fact.
You're not going to see that anymore. You're probably not going to see that anymore anyway.
Yeah, Ludas make short work of that list, that's for sure.
Well, it's not that the Ludas themselves are the problem, is that there are now too many archetypes that blank that.
Yeah.
They're one more.
Yeah.
So
or can just control the board so much that you got nowhere to go, or many other things. Yeah.
Yes, it's one other thing that makes it real difficult to thrive with that list. And that's, if you're doing playtesting, that's something to watch out for. It's like if you go and playtest against 3 or 4 different people and they all have some type of counter to what you're doing, that means you're going to, like, random people are gonna have that you encounter in a tournament. And so you probably need to come up with some different tack. Some change in your list. That's not going to get, you're never going to get what you want from that. And so if you're focused on winning more games, you've got to change that. Like if you show up and the Reapers killed my planes one round, the Ludas did it the second time. The third time, the Gene Stealer cult guy boxed me out of all the objectives or protected his character. So, but I couldn't kill any high value targets. With them. I mean, if you're getting blanked by 3 or 4 different, just seemingly random armies, then it's probably not what you shouldn't be taking that.
Time to go back to the lab. Yeah.
And expecting to win. If that's, whatever. And you might just
and if you're running that kind of a list, you're probably hoping to win.
Yes. But it's the concept that I'm talking about of when do you change your plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's during the, and you can do that, of course, during the game, during the mission, like when do you search for the achievable things and when do you stop chasing the wouldn't it be cool ifs?
Well, that's where I think that the prevalence of certain builds in the meta thing is something worth looking at to an extent, because ultimately you only play 6 games, when we're talking about the LVO. So, like, you could easily play, 6 games against Eldar, even if Eldar are only 10% of the field. Like, that can happen. So, I mean, your matchup is definitely one of those elements that is firmly not within your control, and it can literally wind up being anything. So maybe it's one of those things where if you're building an extreme list, like, say, going very flyer heavy or keying on a very specific strength of an army list, then no matter what, you're basically rolling the dice hoping for you never get the rock to your scissors.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I think, but though, when you are testing though, if you, let's say you're trying to put down those scissors every single time and you come up against 4 different rocks in 4 different lists, then you reconsider.
While I agree, I also would say that, we put a lot of weight on, like, one dice roll being representative. And by the same token, we put a lot of weight on one pairing being representative. Whereas, like, while you might get that draw in one GT, you might get the bad draw every single game. If you look at, again, I'm just going to use the first, I know I'm very orc centric. I'm sorry, guys, if you're sick of me talking about orcs, but if you look at the draws that Steven had in his win at Renegade, he kind of tap danced around a lot of what might have been his hardest counters, and he didn't get them. And he was able to, wind up, his first matchup against Eldar was the last one, was his final round. And that actually is a pretty good matchup. But my point is that, the matchup is actually something that's really something that you can't control. And also, like, as far as determining whether or not your army is one dimensional, I don't know if it's necessarily, like, if you go to one GT and get your worst case scenario 4 times in a row, I don't know if that necessarily means it's time to hang up. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to re-examine your options or tweaks. I think that's symptomatic of an extreme build list, like a good team list.
Well, I think what you're talking about too is it don't take anecdotal evidence as some type of proof.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
I mean, I think if you go about it though in a way that really objectively see what your obstacles are to winning. And if you're just trying to make something happen that isn't going to work because there are too many counters, that's when I think it's a good time to abandon that path. And that's what I've done with the flyers. I've shelved the flyers because one more thing got injected into the area that's going to make them not good. And
I think also the inverse can be, I think, more of a danger with especially extreme builds, in that like you can take those to an RTT and you just never get your tough matchup, right? And that's your practice round. You're like, oh man, this thing's going to run train, and then you do what you did, and you run into the 4 hardest matchups when you actually get to the GT.
That is sometimes the worst. Is you just oh man. If I just don't get Tyranids, if I just don't play Tyranids, I'm going to do great. Oh, 2 Tyranids in a row.
Oh. Well, last year for me at the LVO,
real.
I opened up against Tyranids. I played just a terrible game, just vintage Tafelfinger, and then my next round was against a guy who was playing like endless Poxwalker stuff, and it was just an atrocious matchup for me. And he was just sitting there waiting for me in the second round, just kicked me right in the junk while I was already down. And, you're expecting to play someone with, a different, every guy has a different special weapon when you lose really badly.
You got one Vindicator, one Predator,
did he steal your
2 land
speeders? Were
speeders.
you able to keep a hold of that?
Instead, he was the guy who took an extreme list and he played his extreme counter, and he also got 0 points. And I had to get whooped by him in the second round.
That's the worst. Step on that landmine.
That's right. Or I prefer the image of Satchel Bob in the field of rakes.
With the rakes.
Oh man, that's the worst. Well, as we continue to move closer to the tournament, we're going to be talking about it. Talking about preparedness for the tournaments. Look, the next show, we're going to have a new player segment at the beginning of the show.
Cool.
For about 10-15 minutes or so.
What's the new player? What is the new player
resolution?
What's the segment going to be? Well, I'd like to go over some of the differences between the different styles of play in the rulebook, and then how matched play is different than the other 2 variants. That is how I'd like to frame it, is how to get new players into the match play environment.
Love it.
So anyway, it's going to be a great year. Thank y'all for joining us and hanging with us throughout this one. Look forward to talking with y'all and having people listen in the year to come, man.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be here.
Have a great one.
Here's the 2019.
Thanks for listening.